Hello, Digital Empire Builders. I am so glad to be on with you near the end of this 2022. And if you are here with me live right now, would you mind dropping your name in the chat and what city you're joining from? I'm so glad for those of you who are able to join me live. So, welcome to my masterclass, How to Set Revenue Goals in Your Business so you can have a more profitable 2023. I really love focusing on this topic as we wrap up the end of the year, because this is usually the time where I'm really starting to look forward, getting ready for next year. So it's that in between Christmas and New Year's that I really have that valuable reflection and planning time together. And that's why I really wanted to put this together for y'all, in case you are someone like me who likes to do that type of planning and sort of just get our heads in the game as we prepare for ourselves and for our business to be even better next year. And if you are here live in the chat, you can also drop in any questions or comments that you have along the way. And for those of you who are going to be catching the replay of this, you can also drop your questions in the comments and I will be replying to those directly as well. All right. I'm big on being useful with their time, so I'm just going to get straight into it. And we'll go ahead. And just as a little intro, for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Clara Koo. I am the CEO of Conquer the Digital Empire and creator of this masterclass. And one of my favorite quotes or mantras rather, that I have for myself is that passion with a plan is what leads to profit. And I feel really strongly about that because planning out the year based on revenue goals has really been a big game changer in how much more focused and clear I've been in marketing my business online. And that's why I wanted to share all that knowledge with you today. I love working with course creators, coaches, and consultants on building that dream business. I left my job a few years ago with my husband. It was a corporate job, and we started Conquer the Digital Empire. And it's just been a dream how much that dream business has given us more freedom and being able to do what we really love to do, and meeting other entrepreneurs like those of you watching along the way, and trying to help their dream come true as well. So that's just a little bit about me. And just to reassure you that you're in the right place for joining this masterclass, if setting goals has felt like picking numbers out of thin air without any real logic, sometimes it's like, where on earth am I going to get this number from? We're going to go over how to get realistic numbers. You're in the right place too if you didn't hit the goals that you set for yourself this past year and you don't want a repeat of that for next year. Oftentimes we can maybe feel disappointed in ourselves, but when you look back and see like what has worked well, it's always a good foundation for how to really improve on what went well this year, next year. And then you're also in the right place if you are still figuring out which products or services you want to offer next year that align with your revenue goals. Include that last part because when you're especially in the first early years of business, when you're finding your footing and trying to decide, do I want to actually sell this? Do I want to make this? And there's a lot of trial error in those first few years. And the beauty as business owners is that we have the ability to be able to pivot when we either don't want to offer something anymore or we want to change what we want to offer. And as long as you keep, don't be afraid to change or pivot, because as long as you're getting closer to aligning with what you want to offer in your business, with the vision that you have going forward, that's really the power that we have as business owners. So for all those reasons, you're in the right place for that. And if there is any one of those reasons that happen to resonate with you, let me know in the chat if why you came to this masterclass. Is it one of those reasons or is it a little bit something else? Now, today's topics, what I want to cover in our brief time together is one is, why are we going to be setting these revenue goals for next year? Like, why is it so important that we do this exercise for ourselves? Then we're going to go over like, how do we set annual revenue goals that are actually realistic? So going back to like, let's not pick numbers, out of thin air. How do we make it realistic to our current situation? How do you turn those revenue goals into a revenue plan so that you actually achieve the goals that you set targets for? And then I mentioned this briefly for those of you on my email list that I'm going to give a sneak peek to a revenue goals calculator that I put together to help it make it easier for you to actually calculate the numbers in the way that we're going to go over in this masterclass. And then toward the end will be a quick little invite if you want to join a special workshop. If you like how I've been teaching on this masterclass, then I have a little workshop coming up too that you guys might be interested in as well. But that's at the end. But otherwise, those are the topics that we'll be going over today. And as I mentioned, if you have questions throughout the masterclass, I will address them both at the end. And then also, if there's something that I'm going over in the presentation, I'll also be checking on the chat as well, if it's something I should just answer really quickly. Okay, so diving right in, let's start with why are we going through this exercise in the first place? Why bother setting revenue goals? And now the single most important thing I want you to remember from today's training is that setting revenue goals makes your year less stressful. And more importantly, it empowers you to be more proactive rather than reactive to what's happening in your business. So number one, it helps with targeting. So you're more likely to achieve numbers that you are aiming for when you actually have a clear target. Not something generic like I'm going to make 6 figures, but no, I'm going to make 115,000, for example. You have a clear target, then you're more likely to achieve it and build a plan around it. That's the next part. You're able to plan when you have revenue goals. You can make decisions about when you're going to hire more team members, or maybe your first team member if you're working by yourself. You can plan on when you need to upgrade your resources, maybe upgrading the software, or just upgrading how you've been doing things in your business to achieve a certain revenue goal. And you can build a runway to avoid any financial crises. So if you're planning to make a certain revenue goal, let's say by the end of the first quarter, and let's say you didn't hit it, at least you know by how much you didn't hit it by because you've set that goal in the beginning, and you can make some plans, some backup plans in case that happens. And then last but not least, setting revenue goals helps you align. You can develop intentional marketing strategies that align with your long-term goals. And this goes back to knowing exactly what you want to offer in terms of products and services, because when you're just trying to offer all these different things that aren't aligned to a big goal, you'll find yourself being spread so thin, and you find that your marketing strategy and your marketing message isn't so clear. Like which product or service, should I actually be pushing? But when you're very clear on what you're going to sell and how much of that you're going to sell, everything just suddenly comes more in alignment and is a lot more streamlined. So those are big reasons why you really need to be setting those revenue goals if you haven't already. And so our first topic that we're really diving into is how do you set these realistic annual revenue goals? And let's dive into why, so that you're not just picking a random number. So the real first step is start by looking at your previous year's revenue growth. Now, in case there are those of you watching who this year was your first year, running your business and actually getting revenue from it, let's just still, keep this in mind just as you go forward. But for those of us who've had a year or two under our belts, start by looking at your previous year's revenue growth as a place to start picking your numbers. And just so we're all on the same page, when I say revenue growth means the company's income over a specific period of time compared to an identical period in the past. So you'll compare, let's say, this year to last year, or this month to last month, as long as it's the same time frame. That's what the revenue growth is that we're measuring. And what's really important about revenue growth is it's really giving you an idea of the overall health of your business, and it helps you gauge how successfully have you been selling your products and services. If your revenue growth has been stagnant or it hasn't been going up, that might be an indicator that you need to change something up in how you're promoting your business. So quick little formula on how to calculate revenue growth is you're going to take your current period revenue, so let's say 2022, minus your previous period revenue, 2021, and then divide that by your previous period revenue. And I did this formula for our business, Conquer the Digital Empire. And using this formula, I calculated that from 2021 to 2022, we experienced a 7.3% revenue growth. And that was pretty good considering we had a lot of big changes that we experienced both personally and professionally from that year. And if you do happen to know your revenue growth from 2021 to 2022, if you don't mind sharing it, you can drop it in the chat, and then I'll be showing you later how you can take that number, or how the revenues calculator can also give you that number for those of you who don't have it already. Yeah, so 7.3% revenue growth, that is what I'm going to base my decisions on because that's what we had last year. And so when I think of like, what will our revenue growth be going into next year, I have a baseline on what to base off of instead of just something random. So realistically, when I look at it for our business, can I expect us to increase growth next year? And if so, by how much? Now, it's also possible that we would stay flat or maybe have to scale back our expectations for the growth depending on several factors. And some of those factors can be determined by answering just a few questions that I've put together. So here are some questions to consider when you're thinking about, what will your revenue growth be in 2023? So question number one is, have you experienced steady revenue growth in the past? If you've been in the business for a few years now, have you steadily been increasing at a pretty predictable rate? You can use that to gauge how much more you might increase next year. Another question, will you have at least as much, if not more, resources going forward as you did this past year? Now, resources could be things like software and other tools. It could also be people. So if, let's say, you've been working with a virtual assistant this year who's really been a game changer in freeing up your time, will you have that virtual assistant next year? Or even if you have specific customer salespeople, people who are getting on sales calls and selling your products or services for you, will those same salespeople be available next year? Or perhaps maybe you're going to be hiring new salespeople next year. If that's the case, then maybe you actually could bump up your revenue growth expectations. Another one is, are you focused on bringing in more revenue from existing clients or new leads? And this is an important distinction because it's often much easier for us to cross-sell other products and services to our existing clients than it is to go get a new lead, bring them on board, etc. So if you feel like next year you're actually going to be able to cross-sell better to your current clients, then I would say that's a bump up in, expecting a higher increase in your revenue growth. But if you're shifting more into getting a bunch of new leads, then you might want to sort of temper your expectations a little bit. Couple more questions to consider. Are you adding new products and services, or are you shifting target markets? Now, this is actually a situation we're going to be in because I'm adding a different target market to our business. So primarily, Conquer the Digital Empire has been focused on serving existing business owners who want to launch a course or coaching program to their business. But the new market I would like to target is those who want to leave their employee jobs and shift into full-time entrepreneurship. That will be a new market for us. And so it takes obviously time and resources to build up all the assets to be able to cater to this new market. Same thing, even if we're going to launch a new product or service, you're going to need those time and resources to create those new products. And so you're not going to be immediately seeing revenue right away from those efforts. So that's just something to keep in mind. Another thing is, do you have a major contract that's coming to a close? Similarly, are you going to retain most of your current clients into next year? So let's say you've been, regularly having 5 clients on retainer, on a monthly retainer for your business. Are all those 5 clients have already committed to work with you going forward into next year? have 3 decided that they're not going to, and so suddenly you have to make up that gap of 3 monthly retainers. And so again, that idea, like, you might have to give yourself some more time and, temper your expectations if you know you have to make up some of that income, because not all of your clients from this year are going to go into next year. Now, this is obviously different for each person. You have your own situation, but those are things that you should be considering as you also balance in your head, like, what was my revenue growth last year? And let's just see how does that play out with some numbers, right? So let's say in 2022, your revenue in your business was $50,000. I gave some ranges for percent revenue growth just to see, like, what does this look like in actual numbers? If this was your business revenue at 5% revenue growth, you are then targeting a revenue goal of 52,500. And I've given a range here. Let's say you are targeting, the much higher end of your business because your business is rapidly growing. You might think, oh, I could experience 45% revenue growth, meaning your revenue goal would be 72,500. And there's a gamut in between that. So you know best the rate at which your business is growing, what resources you'll have next year, what potential maybe collaborations and partnerships can help you in growing your business. But yeah, like, somewhere within this range, you can find that number that feels both doable and also like a little bit of a stretch goal, right? And so as you've sort of seen those questions, write down, this is an action that you can take, write down what is your initial estimate of revenue growth that you feel you can get in 2023. Feel free to share that in the chat if you feel comfortable. I'll share for our business, we're going to target 15% revenue growth. As I mentioned, I'm adding both a new market and a new group coaching program to our offers. So I'm not aiming for a huge jump, but we do have multiple existing digital products and services that we can continue to sell. And we've got the systems in place now to really push those products. So that's why I feel confident that we can continue trending upward with our revenue growth, right? So write that number down, keep that number in the back of your mind, whether it's 5, 10, 25, whatever it is, write that number down. All right, so now that we've talked about factors for making a realistic revenue goal, how do you then turn it into a revenue plan? So let's start by looking at what were your existing offers, meaning what were your existing products and services. Now, just a little clarification, when I talk about products, I strictly am, for me personally, I'm dealing as an online business owner with digital products, things that aren't physical, right? So oftentimes my examples are digital products, but of course, if you're someone who does a lot of e-commerce and you sell physical products, that applies to you in your situation as well. But let's take a look at existing offers. So a question to ask yourself is, what generated revenue in 2022? And that's because we might have offered things, we might have offered products and services that no one took us up on. No one actually hired us for it. So look at what actually made you money in 2022. What I've included here is a small pie chart of the 10 or so products that actually made us money in 2022. And you can see right here, a big chunk of it was I work as a digital business manager for other business owners, so that you could see that accounted for almost half of the income that we had coming in this past year. Coaching, one-on-one coaching was a big chunk, 22%. Videography services was about 17.5, and then you can see the breakdown of the other things. There's little slivers here that you don't even see labels for because they accounted for such a small piece of our revenue growth. Now, it's really important that you see a view like this because it helps you make decisions on what you want to continue to sell next year. So let's say, you were considering getting rid of a product or services, you'd know how much income you'd have to replace over time if you want to get rid of that. So for example, if I wanted to completely move away from one-on-one coaching, I have to understand, like, hey, that's almost a quarter of the revenue I brought in. So I couldn't just drop that service right away, right? I'd have to plan, like, when am I going to phase it out, and what am I going to replace that one-on-one coaching income with? So if I didn't have a pie, if I didn't have a chart view like this, I might be making a decision blindly without understanding the impact it's going to have on my bottom line. And in here on the left are some additional questions to consider when evaluating the offers that you're going to sell. So number one is, which products and services brought in the most money? If you identify that, then you might be wanting to double down on just focusing on pushing that product and service because it's already bringing you money. Another question, which clients hired you the most? It goes back to, can you take the clients who already love you because they're already working with you repeatedly? Can you cross-sell other offers to them? So let's say I had a one-on-one coaching client who I might actually be able to say, like, hey, do you have any video editing that you need done? I could cross-sell our videography services to our current client. Is that the same case for you? Another question is, which product is easiest to scale? Notice that I said product rather than service. Typically services, you're having to, give your time to a person or persons. But with a product, something that you put time in creating in once, you're more easily able to scale that because you've already made it. And now it's just a matter of marketing it so that people are more aware of your product and driving more traffic to a product. So do you have a product that you've already made that you can easily scale by just driving more traffic to it? And then last but not least, what high touch service could be streamlined? So for those of us who are doing either coaching or a lot of done for you services where a lot of personal time is put into giving a client a deliverable, are there ways that you can streamline how much time it's taking you? Whether streamlining can either be you're hiring help to help you make that deliverable, or maybe there's software that you can invest in to make that deliverable happen faster. So those are just some high-level questions as you're looking over what you're going to sell in 2023. These are questions that I ask myself going into 2023, and I already know that I've taken a couple items off of our offer list. Once I sat down, I'm like, I really don't want to do this, and I know I need to push these other products more to make up for that gap in the income. Okay, so this is a really good place to start. Now, the next part is to take your revenue goal and break it down into some smaller amounts based on timelines. So oftentimes, like, a really big number can seem unattainable, but when you break it down into these smaller amounts, they're going to feel much more doable. So for example, let's say I had asked you to look at what do you think might be reasonable revenue growth for 2023. Let's say that goal was 120K. So if it's 120K, big number, right? By quarter, really that means you're targeting 30,000 per quarter. And really that means that you're trying to aim for 10,000 for your monthly revenue goal. So you're going from something really big, 120,000, to like 10,000. I was like, okay, how can I achieve 10,000 in a month? And obviously you would replace this with the numbers that you have for yourself. And then once I have that monthly revenue goal, I then take the products and services that I'm going to sell to meet that goal, and I list them out in a similar way that you're seeing here in this table. Again, this is going back to helping you decide, like, what are the offers you're going to keep selling? And if you're going to keep selling them, are you going to keep the price the same, or do you perhaps need to raise the price so that you're going to meet this new goal that you've set for yourself? And again, of course, which offers might you not sell at all next year? So here's an example of a mix of, maybe you're listing, you've got 3 products and 1 service that you're going to sell in Q1 to meet that 10K a month goal. And these are some initial price points that you might have. And based on those price points, you think you'll realistically be able to sell this much quantity of that product or service to give you the totals here. Now, for an example, if you have a higher price item like service A, let's say it's some kind of consulting service that you offer and it costs $2,000, you're selling it for $2,000. It's much easier to just try focusing selling on one of these services to hit your goal, versus if you're trying to push, maybe you're selling a low ticket product, something that's only 20 bucks, right? You're realistically selling 50, but you'd have to sell so much more, right? In order to get like another $1,000 or so of income. So you're making those decisions like, is it going to be easier for you to scale that product versus that service? So going back to those questions I asked previously. If you decided like, yes, I am going to push my service A because it's $2,000, then you'd start to build a plan around quarter one around, how am I going to promote this service? Am I going to talk about it more on social media? If you have an email list, how do I talk about that service more in my emails that I send, saying, hey, I have these new spots for this premium service that I offer. You could talk about it there. Maybe you have a network of peers that you could say like, oh, hi, by the way, I know you were saying you were struggling with this. I actually could help with that with my coaching service. So what are the things that you could brainstorm to do to push that particular service or product to get more of those sales to meet your goal? Does that make sense? Just let me know in the chat if how I'm breaking it down is making sense to you guys. And then what you'll notice here is, if you say your monthly goal is 10K a month and you go through an exercise of picking your products, the quantity, etc., and you notice I'm still short, realistically, I'm still going to fall short of the goal that I set for myself for that month. So then this is your time to ask yourself, okay, do I then need to adjust my goal? Like maybe 10K a month isn't as realistic as I thought. Maybe it actually needs to be $8,000 a month or $9,000 a month, something like that. So, and that's the beauty of this exercise. Like there is a back and forth, like you're going to take a pass at this multiple times and that's okay. But yeah, if you take a pass and you're like, it really doesn't seem like with my existing products and services, I can't hit that goal. But I don't necessarily want to change that goal yet. Then the next decision to make is like, okay, what new offers could I add to my business to hit that goal, to make up that gap in income that I want? And so this is the part where when you consider what are new offers that you can sell in your business. So this is just a short list that I came up with of what are things that you can add. And I'll just go down the list. Is it a mini course that you could sell, some kind of pre-recorded training that you can do, like a short video series that teaches something that you teach repeatedly to people in your audience? Same idea. You could also do like an ebook where you can, maybe it's like a 10 to 20 page ebook that delivers one very specific outcome to the people in your audience. Another one is downloadable templates. This is actually one of my favorites. One of the templates I made was a Canva template. It was a brand kit Canva template. I sell it for $10, just something really simple that I put together because I was constantly making brand kits for clients, my branding clients. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this all the time anyway. Let me just make it as a template and just sell it in my website shop. And then, yeah, like I sell a handful of these every single month. No additional effort on my part because people were finding my website organically and seeing this template. So is there something that you could templatize in your business and that you could start selling online to make up that gap, right? Other offers you could do is hosting a workshop or masterclass, hosting a virtual summit or conferences, maybe an in-person boot camp and retreat that you could charge like a premium price for. I've been to retreats where I've paid like, several thousands, and it's like a week-long business retreat. And the host, is making, a good amount of money to host all these people coming to one place. If that's something that has been of interest to you, that's something you could consider as well. And that's another high ticket premium price item that you could offer in your business. There's also, if you are into masterminds or hosting a mastermind or coaching where you bring a small group of people together and you guys meet monthly, to brainstorm ideas on how to improve your business or whatever industry that you're in, you could host a high ticket mastermind. There are also obviously other one-on-one services you could choose to offer, like consulting or done-for-you services like website design, done-for-you website design, or another one might be, done-for-you photography shoot, right? Now, the one-on-one services, those again are a bigger pull on your time. So when you think about offering a new one-on-one service, sort of balance like how many new services are you planning to offer, because there's going to be a time commitment to that is much higher than when you create that ebook or that template in the beginning. But when you're coming up with these new offers to sell, you would go through the same exercise as what we did previously, where you'll add it to your list of products and services, decide the price point and the quantity, and see, will that give you the total that you're looking for in order to meet your monthly goal? Now, I have been talking a lot about these numbers, and that was leading me to, as talked about, like there's a revenue goals calculator that we have put together to actually calculate these numbers that I've been talking about. And that's actually the next part of what I wanted to show you. And I'm going to stop sharing this so I can pull up a different screen. And while I'm pulling that up, I see there's a few people here live. Is there any questions that you guys have on the stuff that I just went over? I'm doing that. I'll get this other window up. All right, no questions yet, so just let me know if something pops up. What I have up right now is a spreadsheet, specifically a Google Sheet that we have put together to help you with those numbers. So I'm just going to go down the list real quick, just a quick demo of the spreadsheet. So I did mention before that, when you're first picking your number, how do you pick that you should start by looking at what was your previous year's revenue growth. So we've got a little calculation up here that will calculate that. So let's say your revenue in 2022 was 60,000, and in 2021 your revenue was 52,000, right? That's gonna automatically calculate for you that, oh, okay, from last year to this year, I experienced a 15% revenue growth. And then again, you can use that as the baseline to estimate if in 2023 you're going to go up, stay flat, or go down, right? But that's automatically happening as a calculation for you. You'll notice that everything here on the sheet, anything highlighted in yellow is what you can edit. Anything in white is a calculation that will automatically be happening for you. All right. So let's say you had determined before that let's go back to that same example, that your 2022 revenue was 62,000. The next part that I had showed was showing the breakdown of like, okay, what were the products or services that gave you that 62,000? So remember when I showed you guys that pie chart of like, this is what actually sold this past year? That's where you would go in and say like, okay, well, I sold 5,000 of that product, 2,000 of this, maybe 550 of something else. And what it's doing here as I enter in some numbers is it's telling you here on the right what percent of the total revenue did that product or service generate. So let me actually zoom in just a little bit more. So as you type in the numbers of how much a certain product or service gave you, it's going to auto calculate that on the side. And why the reason why it's red here, it's just basically tracking to make sure that these amounts that you're entering in match the total revenue that you said you made up here for 2022. So let me just change it a little bit so that it's actually even. So see, it turns green because the products you entered are adding up to 62K, which is what you said you made in 2022. So again, it's really important to see what jumps out. It's like, oh my gosh, product 4 accounted for 64% of my revenue. I can't just get rid of that. Either I scale it up, or if I want to replace it, I need to figure out where is a lot more money going to come from if I'm going to get rid of product 4. So that's the revenue breakdown by, I'll be by product/service. I'll actually change that right there. Oh, and you'll notice too, if you do try to edit any other cell, you'll see that little pop-up came up where even if you type something in, it says, hey, you're trying to edit part of the sheet that shouldn't be changed, and just hit cancel. So you're just not meant to type in there, just to keep the form, the sheet clean. All right, so going on down, so that's all about looking backwards, looking back at your 2022. In 2023, that's where you can have your projected revenue. So when I talked about, how are you going to pick a revenue growth percentage based on, what you made last year? So if last year, I'll enter this part in again. You made 62,000 and you made 54,000. Okay, let's say that, previous year you made like 14.81%, and you're like, you know what? I think I can do 20% better next year than I did this year. So what this calculation did is it took your annual revenue from 2022 and projected it out to be 20% higher, which is why it says 74,400 down here. And remember when I was saying how, sometimes this annual number can be like this big scary number. Well, if you break it down, it's really 6,200 a month or 18,600 per quarter. So again, it's doing an auto calculation for you that if this is going to be your annual projected revenue, if this is what you're targeting, this is what you worry about per month and per quarter. So then it feels much more manageable, right? 6,200. And then down here, remember, what are the offers? What are the products and services that are going to get you to your revenue goals that you're stating for yourself? So if your first product, let's say product 1, in product 1 in 2022, you sold $5,000 worth of product 1. Maybe next year you're like, I think I can get to 6,000, right? And the price of that product that you're selling is, let's just say, 500. It's going to calculate for you here that, okay, if that's going to be your goal, you need to sell 12 of that product for the year or 1 of that product per month. And then if you decide like, actually, I'm going to raise the price of this product. I've been selling it for $500. I'm going to raise the price to, say, $750. Now you only need to sell 8 per year or less than 1 per month, or basically 1 per month. But when you start typing in your products and offers, that's how you can more quickly play with the numbers, both in the sense of you can play with the price point of that number to know like how much of that quantity do you need to sell, and also you can be adjusting like your expectations for how much you're actually going to sell of that product. So maybe you have a different product, or let's just, so you know that you could say service. You could put the name of the service is videography. Let's just use one of ours, videography. And last year, maybe you did 11K selling videography services. You're gonna sell 15 of that, $15,000 worth. And let's say on average, you sell a videography package for $4,000. You need to sell 4 per year. Sometimes it's not like super clean per month, but at least you know per year that's what you need to aim for. And again, going back to, it doesn't feel as scary when you have a certain number that you're going to target. You only need 4 videography gigs or 4 whatever consulting gigs at this price point to be able to reach your goal. And then at the very bottom, it again is going to tell you like, hey, based on what you've entered up here, you're going to be under your projected revenue goal with the products that you've listed so far. So this is your way. It's like the way you can gauge, like, do you need to add new products or services so that you're not under your projected goal, or do you maybe need to adjust your price points or your expectations for what you're going to sell for each of those things. Yeah, and so this is the calculator. And for those of you on my email list, you will be getting a link to this calculator so that you guys can make a copy of this and play with it. Again, this was a spreadsheet made in Google Sheets. So you should be able to make a copy of it and have it saved directly into your Google Drive, play with the numbers until you get it to a point where like, okay, this is my plan. This is my revenue plan for Q1. And you can keep repeating this exercise using this sheet for the rest of the quarters in 2023. Okay. Yeah, so that was the calculator that we have put together for y'all. I really hope you guys play around with it. And most importantly, I would love to get, there. Most importantly, I would love to get any feedback on the calculator. You know, John and I, my husband and I, have obviously been playing around with it for ourselves, but we're excited to have other people put their numbers in and see what decisions it helps them make. You know, so please let us know, whether through emailing or just commenting in the on the video, like what you thought of the calculator. And if you guys like this workshop, if you like this masterclass and want more of these, I'd love to know that as well. I love teaching this online, and I have future topics planned for, you know, people who are helping people run their business online, you know, in an easier, more streamlined way. So any topics that you guys want to hear from us, please let us know. And yeah, if you guys can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our channel is brand new, and this is part of the reason why I also wanted to do this masterclass, because we plan to put out more content like this. And I did not see anything in the chat, but you know, for those of you who are watching, thank you so much for joining. Can't wait to use the calculator. Thank you very much, Suka Productions. And yes, you will be getting an email. And for those of you catching the replay or who are not on our list and are catching this video, I'll also include a link to this calculator in the video description. All right, well, if there are no other questions, I want to wish you a happy early New Year's Eve. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the year, and I'm so excited for all of us as we go into 2023. Have a great rest of the day, guys. Bye.